Hey everyone, this is David Brown with the migration update for March 17th, 2024 from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. Kim and I started out the day at the Braddock Bay East Spit where there were strong westerly winds and mostly sunny skies. We had this bird fly in and land near the other gulls. This is a smaller gull with a small black bill, a black dot behind the eye, black wingtips, and pinkish legs. This is a Bonaparte's gull, and it was our first for the season. On the upper wing in flight, we see a white wedge along the outer primaries, and we see black only at the tips of the feathers. And on the underwing, again, we see that black only at the tips of the feathers. There's a couple similar species to Bonaparte's gull that we always need to be keeping an eye out for. So little gull would not have the black here on the wingtips, and the underwings would be jet black. It's also possible we could see a black-headed gull, which would show more black here on the primaries on the underside of the wing. It would also have a larger reddish bill and reddish legs. And in this flight shot, you can kind of see the pinkish legs here of the Bonaparte's gull. Here we have a flock of American widgeons, and there's still scattered reports of the Eurasian widgeon, although me and Kim haven't seen it since the first day when she spotted it. And while we were out there, a text alert came out of an adult black-legged kittiwake, another species of gull, and it was a report from not that far to the east of us, and that the bird was heading west over the lake. So it's a bird that could possibly have gone by the East Spit. So we had to make a split-second decision, because at that point we were at the tip of the spit, which is into the bay a little bit. So we had to make the decision, do we stay there and scope out over the lake from there and also watch the bay? Looking out over the lake from that spot's a little bit farther, or do we take the chance and try to get closer to the lake and scan out there and not have as good of a look at the bay? So we ended up staying put and trying to scope what was going on over the lake. And long story short, we never saw the bird, but it was a little bit of excitement and a bird I would have liked to see, but it sounds like it was pretty distant out over the lake, and who knows if it actually passed by the East Spit, but it was a miss for us. At the East Spit, we had 36 species. We got over to the Hawk Watch around 9 a.m. to start the count, and there were strong westerly winds and mostly sunny skies. And then throughout the day, the winds picked up even more into the afternoon. Eventually, we moved off the platform and used the platform to block the wind, and it became a little bit more cloudy as we got into the afternoon, with periods of clouds and sun, and also a few scattered snow flurries. Tree swallows are becoming more regular. We had a few more again today. Remember that they're bluish on top and white underneath. This eastern meadowlark flew across in front of the platform and then perched in a tree, and I just love the way meadowlarks look. They're bright yellow on the front, but very plain and camouflaged on the back. And take a look at those pointed tail feathers. And here's another angle where you can't really see any of that yellow at all, just the plain brown back that helps them really blend in when they're down in fields. And you see those white outer tail feathers that are very, very pointy. Here's a horned lark that was part of a small flyby group. And actually earlier in the morning, there was another group of horned larks that flew by, but I had left the platform to go over to use the bathroom, but someone got to the porta potty before me, so I was standing by the building and scanning, and I saw the flock go by, but with my binoculars, it was too far for me to pick out the individual birds, but they flew pretty close to the platform, and Kim looked through them, and she was able to pick out 2 Lapland longspurs. So unfortunately for me, I missed longspurs again. It's the second time this week that longspurs have flown by the platform, and I missed them, but I'm sure it's a species I'll get at some point, hopefully during the season, fingers crossed. We're still seeing a decent number of tundra swans migrating, and here's part of a flock dropping down onto the bay. Here we have a large dark raptor with a big head, so we should be thinking eagle rather than vulture. And we see a lot of white here in this wing pit area, so that's a sign of an immature bald eagle. And here's that classic shape and plumage of the adult bald eagle. Here we see a hawk with a long tail and rounded wingtips, so we should be thinking accipiter. We see orange barring underneath, so that eliminates American goshawk, so we should be thinking Cooper's hawk or sharp-shinned hawk. This was a larger one with a big head and a rounded tip to the tail, so this is an adult Cooper's hawk. And we see on the upstroke here, it's like the wings are almost touching, and that's because this bird was doing what we would say is a display flight or a territorial flight. where they do a really big, slow, exaggerated flap. And it's something that they do to protect their territory against other Cooper's hawks. So a lot of times if the local nesting Cooper's hawk sees another Cooper's hawk coming through its territory, it will begin doing this. And one thing to be careful of, if we look in this area, we see a lot of white feathers that are fluffed out. These are actually the undertail covert feathers. Now some people see this and they mistake it for the white rump of a northern harrier, but that's not what that is. This is a different feather group completely. And it's just when they're doing these kind of territorial displays, they fluff out those feathers. Here we have a hawk gliding overhead. We see more of a well-proportioned hawk without a really long tail, somewhat broad wings. We see dark patagial bars and a belly band. This is a red-tailed hawk. And we see a dark trailing edge to the wings and a red tail, so we know that this is an adult red-tailed hawk. Here we have a balloon that floated by pretty low, and with the winds, it was heading straight for the lake. And whether this made it to the water or ended up in a tree before there, either way it ended up as litter. So just be very mindful about using balloons and make sure that they don't get released into nature where they end up just being trash and litter. We had a pretty good flight of turkey vultures today. In fact, it was the biggest day so far this season. And it was especially a good flight in the morning, and then more into the afternoon it began to die off more. We had some red-shouldered hawks migrating throughout the morning, though most of them were up pretty high. Here we have an adult, so we see that orange coloration throughout the underside, and we see a dark tail with thin white bands. And looking at the shape versus the shape of a red-tailed hawk, red shoulders just look a little bit skinnier. They don't look as big and bulky. You can see it kind of in this glide posture, they push their wrists forward a little bit. Their wingtips get a little more pointed. Their tail looks a little bit longer than the tail of a red-tailed hawk. So it's very subtle things, but when you're seeing a lot of both of them, it's something that you can pick up on. And we also see those translucent crescents here near the wingtips. That's another field mark we can look for. Here we have a bald eagle that's not quite in full adult plumage, but it's getting pretty close. We see that there's still a little bit of dark where it should be white, and still a little bit of white where it should be dark. Here we see some birds with long straight necks and long trailing legs, overall grayish in color. These are sandhill cranes, and this was 4 out of a group of 5 that migrated by, a total of 7 sandhill cranes for the day. As the winds got stronger, it got a little annoying to be up on the platform with that wind battering us around, so we moved behind the platform so we could stay out of the wind. And here's a photo that Kim took of me while I was counting back there, and I actually really like this photo because I think it captures a lot of things about the Hawk Watch. You have the sign that talks about Braddock Bay Raptor Research, which is the organization that hires me. You can see my lunchbox. Here we had a cell phone that was running Merlin, my water bottle, my soup container, my clickers, my camera, my scope, Kim's water bottle. And up here on top, you can see the GoPro that I use to get the time-lapse footage that I use when I talk about the weather. So a lot of subtle details that are captured in this photo, plus my iconic orange hat. Throughout the morning, most of the turkey vultures were fairly high and out towards the lake, but as the winds increased in the early afternoon, the flight line shifted more towards the platform and relatively low, so we ended up getting some really close looks at turkey vultures. Here we see a small raptor with pointed wings and light in color underneath. This is a male American kestrel. And notice when the tail is completely folded like this, you only see the outer tail feathers, so you don't see any of the orange feathers of the tail. But we know this is a male because of the underside markings. We just see a few spots here and there, whereas a female would have more of some streaking on the breast. And I pulled a Mike Tetlow today. Mike Tetlow is always talking about how when he starts eating his lunch and he's eating his sandwich and looking up, that's when he spots all the good birds. Well, today I started eating my soup and looked up naked eye and saw this bird coming. And this is an immature golden eagle, and it gave us a really nice look up there against that sky with the sun shining on it. And golden eagles can be very difficult to age to a specific year, so I'll just call this one an immature, meaning it's not an adult yet. And the way we know that is because it has these white patches in the wings, as well as a white base to the tail. And if we look at the overall shape of the bird, it just looks a little bit more rounded to me than bald eagles do. Bald eagles look like a big flying rectangle, basically. On the golden eagle, the wings have a bit of a curve to them. And they also have a smaller head. Their tail looks long with a small head, whereas a bald eagle looks more large-headed. Here's a bald eagle for comparison. Their head just looks bigger, and they just don't look as smooth as the golden eagle does. Even here with the wingtips folded back a little bit, it looks like someone tried to take a rectangle and bend it kind of funny. It just doesn't have that elegance that the golden eagles have. Although bald eagles are quite majestic as they're powering overhead with a 20-mile-an-hour tailwind. Here's a swan that we had in a group of 3 tundra swans, and this one just looks slightly larger than the other one, so I took a bunch of photos. But here we do see it has a little bit of yellow here in front of the eye, which is usually a field mark for tundra swan and would roll out the larger trumpeter swan. Here's another look at a turkey vulture, and this is just classic turkey vulture in a soar. So we see that it's two-toned underneath. You have a lot of dark here, but the actual flight feathers of the wing, the primaries and the secondaries, they're all silvery. Compare that to black vulture, where it's only these outer primary feathers that are the silver color, and all these other ones are darker. We see that turkey vultures have a relatively long tail as well, and a very small head because they don't have any feathers on their head. Here we see a raptor that's grayish silver on top with black wingtips. We see a gray tail and a white rump patch. So this is an adult male northern harrier. And this is probably the one that's been hanging around the marsh for the past several days, and we even saw it doing some more territorial or display flights today. So we're really hoping this bird sticks around to nest. And here's an underside view of the same bird. Notice they have a lot of white underneath, but you see that grayish head. You see the black wingtips and the black trailing edge to the secondaries. And here we have another eagle. We see a large head, and we see a lot of splotchy white throughout the underside, especially here in the wing pit area. This is an immature bald eagle. And here's a group of 4 double-crested cormorants cruising into the wind with very angular wings. And one more look at an eagle. We see a large dark head, a lot of dark throughout the underside, but a lot of white here in the underwing, especially the wing pit area. We see an even trailing edge to the wing because all of the feathers are the same age and none have been replaced yet. This is a juvenile bald eagle. Taking a look at the eBird checklist for the Hawk Watch, today we had 50 species. I had 1 new species for the season today, which was Bonaparte's gull. Taking a look at the hawk count report for our migrant raptor totals, today we had 358 turkey vultures, 9 bald eagles, 1 northern harrier, 1 sharp-shinned hawk, 4 Cooper's hawks. For Buteos, we had 15 red-shouldered hawks and 22 red-tailed hawks. We had 1 golden eagle. And for falcons, we had 2 American kestrels and 1 peregrine falcon, which I didn't get any photos of because it was along the lake shore, but it was a decent look in the scope. For a total of 414 migrating raptors today. That brings the March total to 1,739 and the season total to 1,897. And taking a look at the forecast for tomorrow, it's looking cloudy with some snow showers possible, a high of only 39, and winds west at 15 to 25 miles per hour. So similar conditions to what we had this afternoon, and really we didn't have much of a flight at all. Once the winds got that strong and it clouded over a little bit, the flight just really shut down. So I would only expect light migration for tomorrow. For Tuesday, it's looking cloudy with snow showers in the afternoon with a high of 38. Winds west at 10 to 20 miles per hour. So again, strong westerly winds and cloudy. Would only expect light migration. But let's see how we do tomorrow. We'll probably do very similar for Tuesday. And for Wednesday, more of the same. Mostly cloudy and windy with snow showers possible. High of 39 and winds a little bit stronger. West at 20 to 30 miles per hour. So would expect only light migration again. All right, well, today ended up being a decent day, although the winds chased us off the platform in the afternoon, and it's looking like a couple days in a row now of more strong westerly winds, so we'll probably be hiding behind the platform or in the car quite a bit, and maybe not seeing much migration, although now that the turkey vulture numbers are picking up, sometimes you'll get numbers that are pushing through on these strong winds. So let's see how we do tomorrow, and then we'll expect the next few days to be somewhat similar to that, but I don't have very high hopes. If you like this video, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of these daily updates from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. From Lake Birds, this is David Brown. Thanks for watching.